Well, I am delighted to say that joining me on the podcast today is Pastor Mick Fleming. Now, Mick joins us as part of this special feature this week on the subject of addiction. Pastor Mick, or Mick, how are you this morning?
I'm very well this morning. Thank you, Brother Alex. Yes, better for seeing your smiling, happy, chubby little face.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So you say the nicest things. You really do. So we, just to give this some context, that we're both ministers in Burnley. This goes out to people across the country and beyond even. But so Mick, you're a Burnley guy, is that true?
Yeah, Burnley born and bred, Alex. Yeah, so I love this place. I love the town. I kind of, yeah, there you go. I love it that much. It knocks me over. It bowls me over, Alex. I love
It really
that
does.
much. It really does, yeah.
So what part of Burnley did you grow up in, Mick?
So I was like, my mother used to call it Higher Duke Bar. It was like Prairie and Queensgate area, really.
Posh,
so we were quite posh, really. Not, but.
Yeah. And what school were you going to as a kid?
So I was went to a Catholic school, went to St. John's, and then on to St. Theodore's, where I didn't quite finish because my behaviour wasn't brilliant. I was in and out of school by the end of. Kind of left about 14ish instead of 16, but I did go back now and again, shall we say. Yeah.
So when your behaviour, were you a bad lad, or were you just misbehaving, you know?
I think so. I had problems when I was very young, which led to my addiction, really. So I can sort of put the pinpoint where my addiction started exactly at the age of 11. So I've gone from being the age of 11, being a really nice, I would say, very much a mummy's boy, because I was the only boy of many sisters, and very close to my mum. And something happened, and life completely changed, and I changed. So I became, from this nice, sweet little lad, I started to live in this fantasy world where I wanted to be a gangster. I wanted to be this. I wanted to be that, and that's eventually what I became. I became the things that the fantasy became a reality, and it wasn't a nice fantasy in the end. You know, the reality wasn't what it was meant to be.
No. So you say that as a child. So what? How did your characteristics change? What behaviours were you demonstrating then?
I became violent. A prolific thief.
Okay. So the violence, was that to your nearest and dearest, or was that to?
No, that would be outside, you know, and I'm talking about as a child as well. I was fighting all the time, you know, just kind of, I just had this anger inside me and this misunderstanding of what had happened to me, and not knowing who and what I was.
Yeah.
You know.
And then you talked about becoming a thief. What kind of things were you doing, Mick?
So I would, even from a very early age, I'd break into properties. You know, I'm talking 11, 12 years of age, factories. I think looking back, I would steal things, and sometimes I'd give them away. I wanted the attention, or I wanted the friendship, or I don't know, maybe even some kind of control or something like that. So I wanted people to like me, and that's what I did. You know, I took everything and give most of it away. Yeah. There was no Robin Hood, you know. And I was just lost.
Were you an accomplished thief, or did you get caught quite a lot?
I like to say I have this. At the time, I can remember so easily that I had this fantasy in my mind that I was like a wonderful thief. You know, 11 years of age, I used to put coats over the backs of chairs with wallets in them and practice pickpocketing. And so that was I wanted to be bad, even though I wasn't. I really wanted to be bad, and I practiced at being bad. I did get caught quite a lot when I was young for stupid things, I'd say, really. So I became known to the police from a young age, burgling, breaking into Burnley Market, and breaking into the local bus depot and trying to steal the wages. In those days, they used to count all the money from the buses in like an office, and they didn't have the kind of crime prevention that they have now, and trying to steal the money and things like that. So,
and how did this impact family life, Mick? You kind of going from this, this child who was really close to your mum to become a bit of a rebel.
Well, it was a bad. It did impact him quite bad. But what had happened, Alex, is so I had a sister that passed away when she was 20. And believe it or not, it would have been a birthday today, so she'd have been 60 today.
And you what age were you when your sister died?
So I was 11. So whatever that works out to be. So I was 11.
Yeah.
But what happened, Alex, was at 11 years of age. So this is kind of key, really, to my life story, I guess. Really, is that I went out and skipped off to school, and on the way to school on a Friday, and I can pinpoint that as well to the day and the time, and I was attacked and I was raped, and I was just devastated. I didn't understand what had happened, and I can remember going to school and sitting in that classroom, and I was bleeding inside, and I couldn't speak. I was ill, but I couldn't leave the school. I was just trying to, pretend and carry on like everything was all right. And I went home like normal, and I went in and I went upstairs and I went to my bedroom, and I was lost. I stayed in my room. I didn't go out that night or anything. But I can remember when it got later on at night, biting the quilt.
Take your time, Mick.
And crying. And I was biting the quilt because my mum and dad was in the room next to me. And I didn't want them to hear, because they might know what had happened. And this man had said he'd kill my mum and dad if I told anybody. And I didn't know, Alex, but I was 11, but I never cried again, ever, till I was 44-ish, when I came into recovery from a later addiction. But what happened was, in that morning, I decided I plucked up the courage overnight to tell my parents what had happened. And as I went downstairs, my dad come through the door, and he said, "Go and sit down in there, your sister's dead." And it echoed in my mind. And I was really close to my sister. I probably would have told her anyway. That's probably what would have happened. And I couldn't speak. I couldn't tell him. I can remember the harrowing screams of my mother and what had happened to me, and that all in one instance as a child. And I knew nothing about drugs, Alex. I knew nothing about sexuality. I knew nothing. I was really just a child. If I was 11, I was probably like a 7-year-old is now. I was very naive, and we were brought up quite strict Catholics, really. I didn't know anything about sexual things or anything. And I went upstairs and I went into my mum's room, and she had some painkillers because she always had a bad back. And I don't even know why to this day, but I think that I knew that when she was in pain, she took these tablets and she could do stuff, and she could survive, and she could live. And I undid them, and I took the tablets. I took 2 or 3 tablets, and I laid on the bed, and I thought I'd found God. I floated away, and there was no pain.
No.
Nothing, just peace.
Yeah.
It didn't last, And when I'd come back to, the pain was still there. It was even bigger. But that started a journey into addiction and violence.
Was there was there any intervention? So, between 11 and 14, did anybody pick up on this vulnerable young boy who'd been through, even if you put the horror of being raped to one side, the trauma of losing somebody you love so much suddenly, was there any support for you and intervention from that perspective?
No, it didn't exist in those days, really.
No.
Well, if it did, we didn't have access to it.
No.
There was nobody. Well, I never heard of anybody being counselled, or
Yeah.
there wasn't the space at school. I remember once trying to tell a teacher what had happened to me, and it was almost frowned upon that I was trying to say these things. So I was shut down and stopped straight away. So
Yeah.
I never did, and all my friends were getting arrested and locked up and stuff, and we'd learned that you don't tell the police anybody. So I learned really quickly that anybody in authority, that I don't tell them anything. So I learned that really fast,
So as let's just move on through your teenage years, to a teenager to your kind of end of your teen years. What was life like for you in that period?
I found the drugs progressed a little bit, but the alcohol progressed massively.
So what were you taking, Mick? What drugs were you putting into
Well,
yourself?
I'd start off at the 13s and the 14s with glue and any tablets I could get hold of, anything at all, basically. A little bit of amphetamine by the time I'd be 15, 16. But alcohol use went through the roof. So I had my first alcohol detox at about 17 years of age.
And what were you drinking, Mick? Just cheap cider or something? Anything?
Yeah, anything I could, anything at all. I'm one of them kids, you think about at school where you go to you take them round to your house when your mum and dad's not there, and I'm in drinks cabinet. Do you know what I mean? But everyone's having a little nip. I'm taking the bottle home. It's like it was that kind of drinking. Anywhere I could get hold of it, I would drink. But I would drink to oblivion. I'd never drink like everybody else.
Yeah.
I drink. So I kind of, people seem to me to drink, and when they get that feeling where they're out of control, they stop. I drank to get that feeling. I wanted that feeling. I didn't. That's the kind of where so alcohol became a big problem.
And was your mum still around at this point?
Yeah.
How would your relationship change with your mum then over this period?
Well, I felt secure around my mum because my mum I couldn't do any wrong. So it was in some kind of a way, she allowed me to get away with my behavior, really. I'm smiling because there was a day when I'd been locked up all night, maybe 16-ish or something, and in the police station, and I come home and I'd gone upstairs. They knew I'd been locked up and they just stopped saying it had just got so regular. And I came downstairs and it was a double room with doors, and quite a big long house. And I went into the kitchen and I could hear my mum and dad speaking, and they didn't know I were there. And my mum said, "Hey," she said, she said, "we're going to have to do something about this." And my dad's reading paper, and he heard paper go down. He went, "Yeah, you're right. I'm sick to death of him. Sick to death of him." She went, "No," she said, "the police are always picking on him." And she meant it, and that's the kind of love that she had. But a mother's love that a son could do no wrong, even when it was there right blatant in front. We had a good relationship with my mum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this addiction, it became, running alongside quite criminal activity. How did that progress in terms of kind of just, what maybe described as petty crime into more significant stuff?
Well, I worked out that I wasn't going to be really, really intelligent, and I wasn't going to have this top flying job with big fancy cars. But I worked out that I could get all that another way
Through crime.
Through crime. So that's what it was, a deliberate thing. It wasn't something I stumbled into. So I'd spend hours of my time planning and working out how I could commit crime and get away with it. And that's what I did. It was cold, calculated. You name it, Alex, you name it. I've done it all,
Tell us some of the worst crimes you've done, Mick.
Well, I think that I couldn't really say on camera for probably the worst crime I've committed later in my life, not at this place we're talking at, but
yeah,
I could tell you what I've been arrested for, Alex, if that
yeah.
anything else. So I've been arrested for murder twice. I've been arrested for armed robbery 5 or 6 times. I've been arrested on firearms offences. I've been arrested on drug charges. I've been arrested for kidnapping. Yeah. So over a period of a long time.
I'm just thinking, Mick, as we're recording this, I just guess the people who are watching this are now thinking, how in God's name is this man a priest? How is he a pastor in the church? And we'll come back to that. But I just want to put that in there because that's what people are going to be thinking at this point. But so these crimes that you committed, I guess, led to incarceration.
Well, so to be honest with you, Alex, I've done very little jail time. I've been arrested for these offences, not convicted of them. So you can make what you will of that, I guess, which I think allowed me to become more blasé. I became almost like I felt I was untouchable, if that makes sense. I haven't, don't get me wrong, I haven't been without being locked up. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is I haven't had large convictions in relation to perhaps some of the things I was involved with.
Yeah, Mick, when all this was going on, how aware of your situation were you? Were you almost content in that environment of addiction and crime, or was there something at the back of your mind saying, this is not right, there's something not right about here?
To be honest with you, Alex, I loved it.
Yeah.
And I didn't like any bad consequences, but I didn't accept the consequences. So, somebody will say, I'll steal this, if I get caught, this will happen. I never accepted that. I'll steal this, I'm not taking the consequences. Somebody else can have it, I'm not. And I think part of that, through bullying and through witness intimidation and all this kind of thing, made me feel a bit more untouchable. So it's such a strange thing because it's like a different person. I am a different person, but when I look back, I liked it because I felt that I had power and control, but it was a dark power, Alex, that I had. I didn't know it was a dark power. I just felt I was comfortable in it. And I guess that's something that is quite a dangerous place to be, really.
So in your, what was the shift then? What was the thing where you thought you went from, I like this feeling of power, I'm content being a drug addict, I can manage alcohol addiction, or you felt you could? What was the shift from actually going, I can't do this anymore?
Well, so what happened? So I've been, so my life, so my kind of, how shall we put it, my relationships with women. I've been married 3 times. I'm married now. And the first marriage, so I had 2 children, 2 boys, and then we had a little girl, Ellie. And my wife then, literally overnight, we thought she'd had a nervous breakdown. So we was in our 30s, and I had a lot of money, nice house, cars, everything, all paid for by crime. And she just changed overnight. And we thought it was a nervous breakdown, but it turned out it was a kind of schizophrenia. I think she's gone on to be diagnosed with schizophrenia. I think it was bipolar then, but it was very, 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 very complex and very a massive change. So we were waiting for her to get better, but she didn't. She got worse. It became impossible to maintain the relationship, and I ended up a single parent with 3 children in my 30s. And what happened then was, I think I hit a crossroad then, Alex. I could have become a nice person and worked everything out. I had money. I could have set up a legitimate business. I could have, but I didn't. I reverted back to the thing that had kept me safe, and it was more crime, get more, feel more secure, and that's what I tried to do. So I had a spell of committing more crime and going deeper and deeper in. So the crime, this is the place where I became more dangerous. So the crimes the things that I've been arrested for happened within this period. That the more serious arrests happened within this period, shall we say.
Yeah. And during this period, was God in your thoughts in any point at this time or not? Or was faith dwelling there or not?
I think I'd pray when I felt like I were in trouble. And I reverted it to my Catholic upbringing, which so I would pray to Jesus, or I'd say the Our Father, but I didn't believe anything had happened if I said the prayer. It was just that I just said it because that's what I'd been taught at school. And for me so we had I know I've heard this a lot, but we had nuns that taught us, and because I was a naughty boy, they used to hit me with sticks. So I didn't feel like if I were praying, I always had this thing in my head that, I were always going to be punished by God. So I was saying I'm sorry to God, not to people. That's what I was saying in my prayers,
Mick, I've got to know you quite well over the last 9 or 10 months, and you told me a story about coffee granules. You happy to share that story about your addiction?
Yeah. So I had some profound moments later on. So probably this would be 11 or 12 years ago. So this is toward the end of my drug and alcohol use, and I find myself in a psychiatric unit because I've been smoking that much crack. I became a danger to other people. That was the reason I was it, and to myself. And I couldn't get any drugs, Alex, at all. Couldn't get anything in. I was monitored all the time. Even when I went to sleep, they'd have the door open in the room, and they sit outside the door. So anyway, I needed something, and they had sachets of coffee, and I was sniffing the coffee. And I was racking it up like a drug user would. So when I say racking it up, what you're doing is, if you're taking cocaine, you're crushing the stuff down, and you're making a line, and then you sniff it with a note or something. And so that's what I did with this coffee to try to get myself high. That's how desperate I were. And the nurse walked in and she just said, "Mate, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, you won't let me out of here. I can't stay in here. I need some drugs. I need some." She said, "Mick, it's decaf." And that was my all-time low, Alex. I'm in a psychiatric unit sniffing decaf coffee. I think that was a low point in my drug using. I think, you know.
Was that the catalyst? I mean, I've talked on the Godcast about one of my rock and roll heroes, a guy called Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode, who had a severe heroin addiction, who flatlined, and I don't think that was enough, and he went home. And I think the story is that his son found him kind of sitting in his own vomit and just said, Dad, I don't want you to do this anymore. And I think that was maybe his lowest ebb, and it was the thing that brought him back. What was the thing that went off in your mind to say, this can't continue, this has to change?
I put a gun under my chin, pulled the trigger, and it didn't go off.
Really?
I'd gone to collect a debt, and that was my low point. And
the low point was that you didn't die.
Yes.
You wanted to die at that point. Wow, Mick. That's this is why I want people to hear your story, Mick, because this is an incredible story that leads to redemption, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and it's still painful, isn't it? Of course it is, because this is your life, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when the thing that matters is that you die, and you can't even die.
You can't even do that well.
Can't even do that right, no. But I felt, you know, that God had saved me, but not just, you know, for me, Alex, and even in my theology now, it has to be real and tangible as this table. Where people say, you know, I'm saved. Well, I am saved, literally, because without God, without the knowledge of Jesus, I die physically. It's not just a spiritual thing, it's a physical thing. It's both. It's like kingdom come here and now for me. And the two have to be one. And it's that I'm saved physically as well as spiritually, you know.
Mick, I know you're a proud evangelical, and I'm gonna let you evangelize in a minute, but I just want to just carry on this story because it's compelling stuff. Is this so? The gun doesn't go off.
Yeah.
What happens to Mick Fleming next?
I prayed. I prayed, and I had the radio on in the car. I were in a stolen car, and the gun was wrapped in a carrier bag, plastic carrier bag. So I've thrown the gun on the floor, and I sit still, and I become that 11-year-old little kid. You know, that I say he because it's me, but he bit the quilt that night and cried. He bit the quilt so nobody could hear him crying. The gun didn't go off. I threw it on the floor, and that 11-year-old boy cried again as a 44-year-old man, 42, whatever it was. But this time he didn't bite the quilt.
No.
The tears came out, you know.
So there was this big release. Mick, why didn't you just go and drive the car into a brick wall? What stopped you doing that?
I don't know, Alex. I kind of say the prayer. I felt that the prayer hadn't worked, apart from the gun not going off, and I was psychotic as well, you know, kind of like from smoking crack. I was very poorly in my head. I didn't see visions or anything like that, but I wasn't right. I was extremely paranoid and kind of a bit dangerous, twitchy and dangerous. This is how the drug makes you. And I don't know is the answer to that. I just, I don't know. But I can remember the music on the radio, Alex, and it was Johnny Cash, Man in Black, and it wasn't like an uplifting song in my mind as I heard it at that time. It was the black was darkness, and I just felt I'm him. I'm him. I'm that man in black. I'm dark.
Yeah.
And I felt like, yeah.
Mick, I'm just mindful of time, but this is
Yeah, it's all right.
So how did the road to recovery happen? How did you start getting better?
So the road to recovery happened from that point onwards. So I don't need to go into how I was sat in that car, but I was. And I was in a psychiatric unit not long after that because it was dangerous, hence the sniffing of the coffee. So in there, I couldn't get drugs and I couldn't get alcohol. And so I spent a few months in there, and I got thrown out, actually, Alex. I don't know if many people get thrown out of psychiatric units, but I got thrown out in the end. So we're clean for the first time, blimey, since we were a kid, really, probably the first time ever. So we're walking out there clean, but again, I'd gone from having loads of money to having nothing. So I had absolutely nothing. I didn't have a carrot, and I had nowhere to live. I destroyed my second marriage, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I ended up in a homeless hostel, and it was my pride that was brought down. So my pride was that bad. I had no money. I'd never been on benefits or anything because I'd always been out, just go and get, if no money, I'll go and get some. That's what I'd always done. And I were on this benefit, and they said to in this homeless hostel, and they said, you'll be getting, I think it was about £140 or £120 or something. I said, how am I supposed to manage on that a week? He said, no, that's a fortnight. I went, what? I couldn't believe it. But anyway, I got this gyro thing in those days, and I bought a brand new suit and some brand new shoes. Didn't have any food, but I put the clothes on, and I'd walk around town pretending I were doing really well because my pride was so big. I couldn't be seen. To be weak and have nothing, and that's what the problem was. So it was the journey from that point on in recovery was that the pride to be destroyed, and I find it ridiculous. I couldn't get on the bus. I'd have to walk because in case someone saw me on a bus and knew I didn't have a car, you know. So it was the pride. Yeah.
So but you slowly got better, right? Yeah.
I did slowly get better. Yeah.
And this kind of this conversion to faith came about how?
Well, so I began to pray. So blimey. I mean, I know you're mindful of time, but I mean, it is complicated. But basically, remember, I've come out of a psychiatric unit. So what I'm going to say now, you can either take it whichever way they want. People can take it whichever way they want. And I don't mind. You can either say I was ill still, or you can take it whatever. Depends what you've learned. So I'm in the homeless hostel, and I'm laid on my bed. Now, I've never seen a vision in my life with or without drugs. I didn't hear voices. I just used lots of drugs. I didn't use certain drugs that give you them trippy things, but I were a crack smoker basically anyway. So I'm clean probably 5 months, and I'm laid on my bed, and I looks up, and there's an angel at the bottom of my bed, Alex, and I'm laughing because it sounds ridiculous, right? And like you do when you see an angel, I just went, all right. And it went, all right. And I thought, what on earth is going here? And it spoke to me, right? And it came and it came and spoke to me 3 times over 3 days. And it said things that I should do. And I did these things and my life completely changed. Now, I don't mind if people think he was not well from his being in the psychiatric unit. I don't mind that, because I did the 3 things and it worked and it transformed my life. And the first thing was that it told me to go and stand against a wall in Burnley Town Centre at exactly 7 o'clock. That's what I had to do. So I did, in the exact spot. And I'm having a fag against this brick wall, exactly where it had told me to be. And at 7 o'clock, the town hall clock in Burnley went bong, bong. And a guy walked around the corner and said, "All right, Mick, I bet you didn't expect me to be here, did you? Come in, let's have a brew." And I thought, what on earth is going on here? And he worked in the homeless hostel I was at. And he took me in, and it was a Narcotics Anonymous meeting for drug addicts rehabilitation. And he was in recovery, and he took me in and he made me a cup of tea, and I sat in the meeting, and my understanding of God came from those meetings. And the angel told me other things that I also did, and they led me into recovery, and they led me direct to Jesus and a transformed life. So it's quite remarkable. People might think I'm just insane, or they might think I was poorly at the time, and I don't actually mind about that, because my life's completely changed.
I think that's a really important thing to say, because people will go, well, it's just, but you're recognizing that as well. So I think that's really important. But so you became a Christian,
Yeah.
and your life was getting better.
Mm.
And when did you feel this calling to ordained ministry then?
Well, so what happened, Alex, was I dropped somebody off at a theological college, and I was just taking him a lift, and as I was walking around these beautiful grounds, one of the staff said, "Oh, have you come to study?" And I said, I didn't know what it was. And he said, I said, "No." I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's theology." I said, "What's that?" And he said, "It's about God." I said, "No, I'm all right." I said, I'm all right with God, me. I said, "Me and him are sound, thanks anyway." And he said, "No, I think you will." I said, "What do you mean?" And he gave me a card, and I took the card and put it in my pocket. And you know, Alex, it won't go away. It just kept coming back in my head all the time. And I spoke to my sister, and she just said, "Just ring it and go and see." I said, "Yeah, but I know, but..." Anyway, I rung it, and they said, "Come in." So I went in, and I ended up on the course, got on the course, but I couldn't read and write properly, Alex. I'm profoundly dyslexic, and I didn't tell them, and I don't know why they didn't even test me. I mean, probably because I were a blagger, really. I don't know, but I failed, because I couldn't do it. But then I got diagnosed, and I have these wonderful glasses that I were able to read and write. So when I started to look at the Bible, I got absolutely transformed. I read the Sermon on the Mount, and I read it, and I understood it in my way, and I understood it from recovery. I understood it from that child. I understood it from that grown up with a gun underneath his chin. I understood it from all them perspectives.
Yeah.
And
Just for people who aren't aware, this is the Beatitudes that Mick's referring to. The blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are those who are poor in spirit. Go and look it up. It's worth looking at. Sorry, Mick, carry on. So okay. So there's a difference to studying theology, and and reading the Bible to becoming a pastor. What was it that you felt was, God's calling me to be a pastor now?
Well, I was seeing, for me, that I felt that churches that I'd seen weren't doing what I thought the Bible was saying. I wasn't seeing it, and I thought that I could go and do what Jesus says that we should do. And that's where the excitement came for me, I had an experience when I was homeless, where I was in a church, and they made me a nice cup of tea and everything, and then they let me go, and then they didn't let me go. I had to go, didn't I? Because they were closing the door, and I were out onto the street, cold, and I met an homeless guy on my first night on the street, and the homeless guy took his hat off, put it on my head. He put a quilt around me, put a cigarette in my mouth, lit it, but more to the point, I were rattling really bad off alcohol. So rattling just means simply, if I needed a drink or else I'd have had a fit. And I was just like this. And he poured alcohol and he put it in my mouth for me. And I really, really, in my heart, felt that I met Jesus in that homeless man, not in that church. Because the church didn't understand me, they didn't know me. They knew me from their own perspective, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they didn't know me. He did. And my prayer was answered, not in the church, outside on the street. So I felt at that time that there should be a church on the street. And I felt called, and I thought the only way to do that is to be ordained and to get some kind of authority and some kind of structure that I could come under, because I could run off quite easily under my own steam. So I needed to come under some authority. So that was the idea, Alex, really.
And I think, I guess people looking at you from the outside looking and thinking, well, he's just a guy, he's a pastor on the street, but you are ordained into a church. Tell us about the church you're ordained to, and you do report to a bishop, don't you? Just tell us quickly.
Yeah. So he's a great guy, my bishop. So he's there for advice. He's there for spiritual guidance. I have to report to him certain things. It's the denomination is ticking, so it's the International Christian Church Network. So what we are is we're Bible believing Christians, Bob Standard Christian teaching, and we come under the umbrella of ticking, but we were allowed the autonomy to build our own ministries with the support and the ordination from the bishop. So I was looking to be ordained, but I knew I had to be able to give alcohol out, because I know that if people don't get alcohol, who are alcoholics, they have alcoholic fits, and sometimes they die. And to serve these people, you need to do that as a Christian minister. And I couldn't find any denomination that would support me to do that. But Ticking would, they'd allow me the autonomy to do that and support me in that, so long as it was done properly, regulated. So that's what was appealing to me. It's the theology. Part of the theology is perfect for me. Part of it isn't. But that's every denomination I've ever come across.
So what year were you ordained, Mick? What year were you ordained?
I've only been ordained about 18 months. So I don't know, 18, 19.
Yeah.
19.
And what an impression you're having. And I'm going to slowly bring this interview to a close, but I can tell you that Mick's doing some amazing things in his ministry, and it is an outside ministry, and it's been a privilege to work alongside him in the food bank that we run in Burnley. But Mick, so you're ordained, you're a pastor in the church, and we are brothers and sisters, whether we are Methodist or Baptist or whatever. We are one apostolic church. And
Amen.
How's your life today, Mick?
My life, Alex, is amazing. I can cry when I need to cry. I can laugh when I need to laugh. I can love. But do you know what? Most of all, Alex, I can let people love me. And I never could. My Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, has shown me a way that gives me value, and I can allow people to love me back. That's such a gift.
It is, Mick. And they do in abundance. I've attended a few of the things that you've done, and the love for you is a joy to behold. And your story is incredible. And people who watch this, who may well be in a place of addiction, you are an incredible role model for those people. And not only are you an incredible role model for those people, and the cherry on the cake is the love that emanates through you, through Jesus. And you pour out that love that he gives you on them. And it is something I've never seen before. And so people who watched this at the beginning and thought, hey up, this is a bit of a chancer, this is a bit of a Del boy. It's a real, authentic story. And as you heard earlier in the week from Morgan, you know, you can come back from this, Mick. Just finally give some hope to people out there who are in a dark place, and then we'll end it there.
Okay, so change is possible through love, and people who are struggling so much, they just don't know how to be loved. And we've found a way. We have an answer, and we have a solution. We can teach you, we can hold you, we can love you, we can hold you until you can love yourself through Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Michael, that's it's not the funniest or the most joyous interview I'll ever have, but I think it's one of the most important interviews that needs to be out there and listened to. And I just thank you for your honesty. And I know it runs much deeper than that. And if I could record it for 2 hours, I would, because I know the story is a lot more complex than the complexity of what we've just heard. But thanks, Mick, and I'll see you at the food bank, brother.
See you at the food bank. God bless you.
God bless.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.